I'm sorry, guys, I have a cold or the flu or COVID for the 17th time, something, but as they say, the show must go on. I am a chess master playing against real people in real time, explaining my thought process. This is a special account that chess.com has given me, which starts very low. I'm working it up, and my opponents do get their rating points refunded, okay? So they're attacking my pawn, and I'm going to try to play a gambit here with the move bishop c5, the Busch-Gass Gambit, and we haven't really, I was going to say, we haven't really seen very many people take the pawn, but they do take it. Now, I believe, if I remember correctly, I'm supposed to play the move knight to c6 here. It's kind of like a Stafford Gambit, except you bring out the bishop right away instead of, I believe the Stafford is with the knight. Okay, interesting move. So we really need to stop and think through this because white is, well, what are they doing? Trying to checkmate me on f7, right? The queen and the knight. This is one of the squares on the board that you always want to pay close attention to because your king is the only one defending it, okay? This is where the 4-move checkmate happens. So how do we deal with this? Well, knight to f6 would be a terrible blunder because, yes, I attack the queen, but I don't actually deal with the threat. Now, I could take the knight, but then the queen's going to take me, and it looks like a little triple fork action is happening here. Now, maybe we could play queen e7, and if they take me, we take here, and I don't know, we might be able to survive that position, but that doesn't look ideal. So I think what I'm going to do is consider the move g6. There's quite a few moves I'm considering. Let's start with g6. If I play g6, there's a tactical idea that the knight might take me. And I could just take it back this way, that's fine, but there is a bishop sitting over here, okay? So that's something that I want to pay attention to, right? So let's see what happens. g6, they take me. What if I sacrifice it first, then recaptured? That doesn't look too bad, okay? The other thing that I could do is just defend this. So for example, something like queen f6, which actually defends and attacks f2 at the same time, which kind of looks pretty good. So the question is, which of those options do I like the best? I kind of like this counterattacking idea because it looks pretty tricky for white to deal with that. I don't think there's a lot of easy ways. I mean, they could play knight d3. But yeah, I think I am going to go with that. Now, I'm already out of my theory. I don't really study the Busch-Gass Gambit, so I don't know if this is like an actual line or not. I don't think so, but I could be wrong. So let's just do a quick blunder check, make sure. Oh, and by the way, this is actually not checkmate. The king can move there, but it's still a nice little threat. The knight takes me. Probably would just take with check, recapture. Everything looks good. Let's go queen f6. I spent a lot of time there, but this is a very critical moment in the position. You want to be careful and make sure you're playing good moves, especially when, we're talking about checkmate. We're talking about pieces that might end up getting captured. Those are important things that you want to consider. There's this move knight g4 that I didn't consider, which is pretty actually is interesting for white because they defend. They didn't see it, but knight g4 defends, attacks, and attacks my bishop. So I was going to have to come up with something kind of clever there. And I don't know what maybe queen e7 just defending was probably what I was going to do. But okay, so they just go back. And like I said, you always want to be paying attention to the long range pieces that are lined up with other things, right? So we kind of knew this was coming, and so I'm not going to be surprised here and do something like knight e7 and just blunder my bishop. Okay, so how do we save the bishop? Probably d6 is a simple, easy solution. We defend, we let out this guy. Let's do it. Go d6. And for those of you wondering what the rice stat is, I am fairly certain we will get there eventually, and you'll see what it's all about. So just keep watching, and you'll see. All right, so we are getting ready to bring out the bishop somewhere. Can't go there, obviously, we'll get captured. d4. Now, whenever somebody moves a piece somewhere, you always just want to ask yourself, like, who has more attackers and who has more defenders? I have 3 attackers. White only has 1 defender. So that looks like a free pawn to me. Now, they are letting out their bishop, so maybe I want to be careful, right? But free pawn looks pretty nice. Is my queen getting trapped? No, it's not. I have some places that I could safely move to, and so I am going to be taking the pawn. I'm going to take with the knight because bishops are slightly better than knights usually, especially in an open position. And so I'd like to try to keep my bishop. That's why I'm taking with the knight first. And if the knight takes and I take with the bishop, notice how I'll have a very nice fork, essentially, a double attack with my queen and bishop lining up here, and then also threatening checkmate. Okay, so very interesting position now. And what I like to do when there's multiple things going on is start with the most important things, which is what? Well, the kings. Kings are the most important. So I'm going to start by looking at checks. I have a check, which forces a trade, and then I could deal with my queen if I want. I have another check, which is a nice little fork, and then I could deal with my queen if I want. So that looks pretty good. The queen threat is a big deal, so I am going to need to move my queen at some point. The question is, should I do it now or should I do a little in-between move first? And I think the in-between move is going to be more powerful. So this is called an in-between move when your opponent expects you to do something. They attack my queen, they expect me to move my queen, but I'm not going to. I'm going to do an in-between move instead. Okay, so the question remains, which one is better? If I take here, they take me, let's just say. I could grab this, which looks really, really good. Or we take here, let's say the king moves, and then I grab this. That also looks really, really good. The question really is, would I rather my knight be on c2 and his knight on f3 when I invade with the queen, or would I rather those knights be traded? I think I would rather the knights be on the board because my knight and queen working together to attack the king looks very powerful. So the last thing that I want to check is if I do this and I go hunting down these pieces with my queen and my knight, the only risk is my king going to be in danger from white's pieces? And the way that they are positioned tells me no. Why? Because the queen doesn't have support to take this. The bishop's attacking these squares, but the queen can't get there. And I don't really see how white can deal with that. So, having analyzed everything in depth, let's continue with the check and then followed by queen takes b2. Okay? And I'm spending a lot of time because it's a very complicated position. Right? A lot of beginners are just going to rush through these positions and you're going to make a blunder for sure because they're so complicated. So you have to slow down, you have to calculate, and that's what we did. Now we're going to take here. Notice it defends my knight, and we're trapping the rook and getting ready to take that as well as putting the pressure on the king. A super common mistake that we've seen, by the way, at this ELO range from 800, 900, is players moving way too fast, right? You've got 10 minutes for the game. You don't need to blitz out these moves so quickly. And I think if people slowed down a little bit and kind of analyzed a bit more, we'd be able to make better moves. Now, that being said, some beginners don't really know how to analyze, and that's why they just move quickly because they're like, well, what am I going to calculate? They don't really know, right? Okay, so let's just analyze right away. What is this threatening? Well, that's a pretty serious threat, right? That's checkmate. It's literally just checkmate. So, do I have a more powerful threat on the king? I don't think so because I don't really have a way to check. This is not good enough. It's not check. This I can't go there. I can't go there. I can't take this. So I do need to defend. Okay. So the question is, how do we defend this? It's actually not that simple. And so not a bad move from our opponent. I think the best thing that I'm noticing in this situation is g6. Just block off the queen. It comes with a tempo and we don't get checkmated. I don't really see any other moves actually to defend that because bishop e6, white would just take me. This pawn is pinned. And yeah, there's not a whole lot of options. So I'm going to go ahead and play g6, chase the queen away, and stop it from coming to f7. Good move by our opponent, by the way. Just kind of going on the offensive. They are clearly a very aggressive player, and props to them for at least, putting on the pressure with these moves. All right, so let's see where the queen is going to move to. And once the queen moves, we will probably go ahead and take the rook. It's a question of which way. And wow, bishop takes f7. Okay. So first of all, I want to mention, you don't have to take bishops when people sacrifice them like this. Like sometimes the best move is to just sidestep and just leave it because you might be putting yourself in more danger. But in this case, I don't really see a natural follow-up for white. The knight can't come in. I've got it covered. You can't go here. There's no checks with the queen, except these, which are just blunders. So because of that, I will just go ahead and take it. Okay? But, you got to think through that because sometimes there are follow-up moves that you want to avoid, in which case I maybe would have played king f8, but in this case, it's totally fine. Take it. And eventually, I think we will be taking this rook. It's just a matter of if white's going to stop putting us in check and creating these serious threats. And still plenty of time. 3 minutes is a lot of time. And especially as we're going through these critical moments in the game, I don't feel like I'm going too slow. When I hit probably 1.5 minutes, 1 minute, that's when I'll start to move faster. Okay, let's just identify. There is a threat of queen f4. So we want to kind of pay attention to that. I think we could safely play knight f6 because we've got it defended. It would just be a big trade. So that looks fine. And I think because of that, I'll just go ahead and take this with my knight. I'm taking with the knight because I feel like my queen is in a more aggressive place here, right? Like queen c2, queen here, and they do play queen f4. And so what is our move going to be? Probably knight f6. Now, I could also just move over here, which is not out of the question, but I think knight f6 seems safe enough. It's also developing. If white were to trade a bunch of stuff, am I happy with that? Well, of course. I've got a rook. I got a bishop that they sacrificed. I'm up material, so trading is good. And because of that, I'll play knight f6. Notice e5 attacking my knight. Not really an option. I will just take. Actually, that might be an amazing move. I was going to say I'll just take it. But by taking it, I would actually block my queen. Yeah, that would have been an amazing move for white, I think. They don't do it. They simply take. So we will probably get a big trade here. And, oh, knight g5. Okay. So we just sidestep. It's not a big deal. The queen is still defended, and the knight doesn't really have a good follow-up. So nothing to panic about. I did look at that, by the way, before, but it's just a check, and that's it. That's it. Okay? So, we got the rook. We've got the extra material, and so now trading is fine. Of course, if I have checkmate, I'll look for that, but if not, we can just trade and go into a comfortable endgame up the material. Okay, and they do decide to trade the queens. And this is what I was talking about, a rook and two knights. I have a rook, I have two pieces, and then I have this extra rook and bishop, essentially, and so it's a lot of material. Let's continue developing, forcing another trade. Notice I'm pinning it, so I'm forcing a potential trade, which gets me closer to the end game. And as I get lower on time, that is something that I want to think about, right? I want to make my life easy, essentially. So I will go ahead and trade. I will go ahead and grab a free pawn. Why not? And it looks like my knight is trapped. If possible, I would like to save it, but I don't really see a way to do that. So what I'm going to do instead is go here, getting ready to trade another piece. And even if we lose that, it's totally fine. We have two rooks against one rook, which is a very easy endgame to win. Okay, so how do we do that? I'm going to activate my king. King is a very valuable piece at the end of the game, and I'm going to use it probably to hunt down these pawns. I'm also clearing the way, by the way, for a rook to come here, which is what I wanted to do. Yep, and there you go. You can see how I'm controlling this and not allowing the pawn to move forward. I'm going to just double up and use the fact that I have an extra rook to help win this game. Now, the nice thing about this position for me is white now is totally tied up defending this. They can't leave or they simply lose a pawn. So how am I going to take advantage of that? I'm going to push this, I'm going to push this, and I'm going to push this. And notice they can't take me because the rook. If they take here, I take here. Right? This is just going to be a trade. And once my pawn is here, I have 1, 2, 3 attackers, and they only have 2 defenders. Okay? So I'm taking advantage of the pin and the fact that white's pieces are tied up to kind of clean up the pawns here. Okay? Probably going to take me this way, but let's see. Yes, we'll take back. And now we're busting through. Very common idea when you have the doubled rooks with a pin. You just need to bring some support. In this case, it's a pawn. It could also be a knight, a bishop, a different piece. But this is what I had available. And the nice thing now is I'm not going to take with the pawn. Okay, because then it's still a blockade. I have to still keep playing. I want to trade. I want to make my life easy since I'm running out of time, right? I'm going to take this way. I'm going to take with the rook to cut off the king from coming over to my pawn. I'm going to get a queen, and I'm going to deliver the checkmate. Okay, very simple, straightforward. He's going to probably just give me this. Let's take it. And we're going to get the queen, and we're going to win. Okay? So the only risk here is that we stalemate. So we will make sure that the king has a place to move to. Right now, he has plenty of places. Let's get the queen. If I get the queen, let's check. Okay, I see some squares available to the king. So it's fine, right? And then we just go 1-2. This is like a ladder checkmate. Very straightforward. And good game to our opponent. Okay? All right. Let's check the game review. Looks like it was a relatively well-played game. Update the win count here. We're at 60 wins. Yeah, 90. Not too bad. And I am curious. Oh, I didn't show you guys. I'm sorry. Where's that at? Here we go. Result there. All right. Let me just briefly check. Since I don't play the Busch-Gass Gambit all the time, I want to see knight c6, queen h5. Not really a move that's played too often. And the best response is, yeah, either queen f6 or queen e7. A little bit more accurate. Interesting. So instead of lining up here, Stockfish says it's a little bit better if you line up here and go for that e4 pawn. Okay. And I wonder actually if this move knight g4. Yeah, knight g4 was actually an interesting move for white. Then I would just have to go back to e7. All right. Let's go to the next game. Here we go. We're white. Let's go with e4. We have quite a few openings here on the list. Let's go with knight to f3. And I think I will try to play... Oh, d5. Well, never mind. This is called the Elephant Gambit, okay? The Elephant Gambit is actually very, very tricky. And I'm trying to think. I think the best thing to do is to just take the pawn. Now, you have to be careful because this pawn's going to push forward, but I'll show you what we can do about that. Okay, so we'll take here first. It's tricky because you actually have multiple options. If you take with the knight, that's when it gets dangerous because the queen comes to g5 and maybe not right away, but eventually the queen comes to g5 and you end up with all sorts of crazy stuff. Okay, yeah, this is the move. I think what we do is we pin it. Now, this is a bit advanced because normally you don't want to move your queen to a place like this, right? You're blocking the bishop. Now you can't develop. You're kind of stuck. But this is an exception to the rule, okay? It's an exception because this pawn is so annoying that we really need to deal with it, okay? And that's why I think queen e2 is the best move here. Now, we could also jump our knight around, but then the queen's going to come to d5, attacks us again. We have to move it again. We're wasting all this time. And then black now is ready to go. When you play the Elephant Gambit, the bishops are just ready to come out right away, right? So that's why queen e2 is the most annoying move for black. Because instead of giving them time to do what they want to do, we're saying, no, you got to deal with this. Okay, and they do play the best move, I think. And so you get this interesting situation where we've blocked our bishop, they've blocked their bishop, but now they at least deal with the pin. And again, they're threatening our knight. Okay, so now I believe we play knight to d4. And notice the difference. There's no queen takes d5 to chase our knight away. So by throwing in these moves, it kind of benefits us a little bit, essentially. So that's what's going on here, okay? So a little bit more complicated of an opening here. Okay, so queen e5. So they're attacking my knight. And I'm definitely going to move the knight. I mean, I could defend, but I kind of want my knight to go to c3, so I'm probably going to just move this guy. The question is, where do I want to move it to? And I'm debating. I think b3 is probably safe. Sometimes b5 is a good idea, but in this case, it's already defended. So I think we should just go here. I mean, I say that. c3 actually isn't a terrible idea because it just supports. But no, I think I'm just going to retreat to b3. I don't want to overthink it. I think I'll just go here. And my plan is on queen takes d5. I have knight to c3 working these guys. And there we go. And I'm going to just end up being up a pawn. Okay, so let's do that. Knight c3 forces the queen to move. Notice now we've created a double attack on this e4 pawn as well. And we're going to probably take with the queen to free up the bishop, get ready to castle, and life is now pretty good for us. Okay. The Elephant Gambit. I have a video on the channel where I recommend this opening as black. It's the Elephant Gambit, and there's like a wasp variation. It's really, really tricky for black. But I think white has to take here with the knight. I think it's where we take with the knight. They take with the pawn. They bring out the bishop, go for this fork, and that's when you play queen g5 going into the wasp. And it's kind of crazy, but it's a lot of fun for black. This, the way that I played it, it's kind of the way that you could play if you want to avoid that, just get a nice advantage out of the opening. This is the way to do it. Black has to figure out where to move the queen to. He decided to just go there, okay? And like I said, I think I am going to take with the queen because I want my bishop to be freed up. I can develop it. And also, I'm happy with the queen trade. Why? Because I have an extra pawn, right? Black gambited the pawn, so I have an extra pawn here, which means if we go into an endgame and we trade every single piece off, let's just say hypothetically, I am going to have a winning position because of this extra guy on d2, right? I'm going to be able to use that, eventually push these, create a passed pawn, and that's probably going to help me win, okay? All right, so bishop to f5. If we move, we are going to lose a pawn. I don't want to lose a pawn. So what I'm going to do is play d3. Now, I don't love that it blocks my bishop, but I at least let this guy out and I keep my pawns, which is more important right now. I can still develop it here or fianchetto it here if I need to. Again, we see this idea of the general principle says don't block your bishops, but there's always exceptions, and that's what I'm doing here. Now, when queens are off the board, okay, the c2 square and the c7 square are a bit more vulnerable because there's no queen defending. So I am going to pay attention to this move because I want to make sure that I don't get into trouble. Okay, there's a fork. So if I'm really concerned, I could play like a3 to stop the knight. This square is already controlled. But a more, I think, smart approach might be to play something, well, you know what I was going to say? I was going to say bishop here. If they go there, I just castle to defend. Problem with castling is I actually do lose a pawn over here. I don't want to do. And so I do think I need to actually do something about that. Maybe bishop to d2 is a nice move just to stop that. If the knight goes there, I would have the option to trade. It's a passive move, but remember, I do have the extra pawn. And so playing a little bit passively, a little bit defensively is fine as long as I'm progressing the game forward. I'm making, good moves, right? These are still good moves, developing moves in a sense. Bishop to b4. Yeah, so they're kind of maybe hoping that I take, and then they jump in, and it's kind of an annoying threat. And so I think what I will do instead is maybe just castle. I'll let black trade into me if they really want. But now my king is kind of safe to the side. I'm getting the rook involved, and I'm pretty happy if they want to take me. Now knight b4 isn't a big deal. I already have this weakness dealt with. Okay, but notice how you want to pay attention to those little things because otherwise they add up, right? Like if you just would have totally ignored this knight b4 idea, then the next thing you know, you're like, oh, now I have to deal with the fork. And then that's when the mistakes can start happening. So you really try to plan ahead for that kind of stuff, and you just save yourself a whole bunch of trouble, okay? So we've dealt with this. He decides to trade. Obviously, we have to take back. Not really anything that I need to think about there, so we'll just recapture. And I like that for me for two reasons. Number one, I got a bishop for a knight, so I have the bishop pair now, which is good. But also, and maybe more importantly, is it freed up my bishop. So now I just can immediately develop this guy. Don't even have to play a passive move like bishop e2 anymore. And so I'm pretty happy with that. Also opens up the d file. This rook is basically ready to go as soon as this guy moves. Okay, what's the threat? There it is. And a lot of times when a knight comes out, the simplest and easiest thing to do is push the pawn that is, kind of directly opposed from it or whatever you want to call that. And you just sort of dominate the knight. The knight can no longer move forward. It's not really threatening anything here. Also, this pawn's controlling here, so this knight is really limited in where it can move to. Okay, you see that? Nice. All right, so black castles, and I think it's time to finish the development. So where should I move this bishop to? I am thinking here or here. Yeah, I'm going to go with b5, and we are putting some pressure on this bishop now, right? Because I could take, and if black recaptures, guess what? You lose a bishop. And remember, trading pieces gets me closer to an endgame that I think I'm going to have the advantage in because I have an extra pawn, okay? Extra pawn is enough to win an endgame. Now, rook endings are a little bit tricky, but we're still, we still have some other pieces and we have some time. And that's kind of a more advanced concept I don't really want to get into at this point. So, of course, I take with the rook so that I can double up here and get total control of the file. And I might actually play the move c3. This is setting a little trap here. Setting a little trap for the knight. If the knight takes me, yes, you get a pawn. But then I'm going to move my king, attack the knight. And where's the knight going to go? Can't go there. Can't take this. Can't go here. It's actually trapped. They lose a piece. And so they actually cannot take my pawn unless they are willing to lose their knight. So remember that one. Nice little trick there to win a piece if your opponent's not paying attention. And if they don't take, it's also just a nice little move which gains me a tempo, kicks the knight back. And okay, they do go for it. So I will play king b1. And now we have ourselves a knight. All right. They can get 2 pawns for it, but that's not really good enough. And that's not a good trade. We can take that back. Okay, so they're trying to counterattack the bishop. Should I take this? What do you guys think? Is that a good decision? No. Why would I want to let them trade when the knight is trapped, right? Just save my bishop. This isn't going anywhere. It'll be their next move. All I have to do is save my bishop. Should I go here? No. B5 traps my bishop, right? And I'm losing my bishop. So I'm just going to go... I'm going to go to D3. Because here... Well, maybe E2 is better. I don't know. I like the idea of just kind of tucking it back here. And we can still go here and do this without any problems. Rook d8 doesn't really bother me. Basically, just needed to get it away from the pawns. And we'll take the knight next move. Or if they want to sack here, they can do that as well. And they do. All right, we'll take it back. And so again, trading is good for me. Now I'm up not only... now I'm up more material, right? The bishop instead of just the pawn, right? So king can probably just jump right here. Notice how it like defends everything very nicely. That's always a good sign when your pieces are defended. B5. Okay. Whenever I see a move like this, I always want to ask myself the question, what squares are no longer able to be defended? Okay, when a pawn moves forward, you create weaknesses that you can no longer defend. What are those squares in this position? Well, it's A5 and C5, right? Because before, if I would have moved my knight forward, this pawn could have went to B6 and chased me away. Or if I would have went to C5, it could have moved to B6, chased me away, right? But now you can't because pawns don't go backwards. So these squares just jump out at me as nice targets. And so, for example, I just jump into C5. It's a very nice square for my knight. I'm kind of threatening a bunch of stuff. And black has no way to make me move, right? I mean, they could try with their rook, but the pawns can't make me move. Okay, let's go ahead and swing over, doubling up here, getting out of the pin. I was pinned, right? Because if I would have moved my bishop, I would have lost a rook, but now it's defended, so I don't have to worry. And I'm getting ready to move my bishop and probably force some more trades. Take me closer to the end game where I know I'm going to win. And remember, I know I'm going to win the endgame, not because I'm so good at endgames, but because I have an extra piece, right? So is trading good or bad for me? Good. Now, so yeah, trading is good. That's definitely a fine move. But I also noticed this and this, okay? And the possibility of pinning the knight. So how do I do that? I move my bishop and I create the pin. And if black wants to take my knight, they have to be willing to lose their rook and at the same time get back rank checkmated because the king is stuck on the back rank. So really what's going to happen is they're going to lose their knight. Okay, so, you know, yes, it would have been totally fine if you just traded the knight and the game goes on, but I was paying attention to the idea of a pin. That's how I was able to see this. Okay. And, you know, whenever you have long range pieces lined up on the same file or diagonal, you always want to kind of be looking for these things. Because I think a lot of people here might think like, nah, there's just so many pieces blocking the rooks. I don't need to worry about that. But actually one simple move and bam, we now have a free piece. And it's really that simple. Okay. So let's take with the rook. Again, trading is good for me. And now I'm up 2 pieces, right? And so I'm happy if we trade off all the rooks. That would make my life very easy. I'm going to take with the rook and not with the knight because getting rooks on the 7th rank is very powerful. Also, the knight's already on a pretty nice square. The rook was kind of passive. So I'm taking a passive piece. I'm making it very active. And here we go. Now, I could go here and hunt a pawn. But what I'm going to do instead is play the move f4. And the reason is because I attack over here for 1. And I also push my pawns forward, right? Where I can maybe create a passed pawn and get a queen. Okay, so those are important things I am going to take. By the way, I'm not worried about this because as soon as it gets maybe to like here or here, I'll just tuck my king in front of it. And black is going to have no way to really, you can't support it any further because of this guy. And so I'm totally fine, not concerned with that at all. Let's keep taking stuff. Also with a check. And I'll play g6 and maybe put my bishop here. Notice when the bishop and pawn are helping support each other, that's usually a nice setup. So we'll go with the check. And then I will, like I said, blockade this pawn with my king. And there's nothing that black can really do about that. Now, it is important when somebody is pushing a passed pawn like this that you have a plan for how you're going to stop it, right? Like I wasn't just ignoring it completely. I knew that I was going to be able to play king a2. But you have to have a plan. If my king was sitting over here, I would have paid much more attention to this pawn because otherwise, it could just become a queen and I just lose the game. You can't ignore passed pawns, right? He tries to move the rook somewhere else, but now it's undefended and I simply can take it. Okay. And by the way, I think the king is in a mating net here. And so the next thing that I'm going to do is probably push my pawns up and checkmate here. That's defended. I could take the rook if I want. But like I said, it is a mating net. And so I think I will just play h4, g4, g5 will lead to a checkmate. And I don't see how black is going to stop that. Yeah, g4, they can take my knight, and we will go for the checkmate. Okay, so g4. And g5 checkmate. All right. Good game to our opponent. Let's check the game review. What that looks like. .91 accuracy, not too bad. No brilliant moves. Interesting. I thought maybe one of those at the end, but okay, that's fine. Let's jump in to the next game. All right, we're playing as black here. Let's see what our opponent's going to do. E4. Okay, what do I have on my list here? Dun 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 dun. Okay, we'll play another. Maybe we'll play another Busch-Gass Gambit. See if we can get some different positions from it. Very tricky opening, but oh, you know what I could play? This wasn't on my list, but I could play the Elephant Gambit, actually, that somebody just played against us, and I'll see if we can get a chance to play the Wasp. Yeah, this was not, I wasn't planning on doing this, but Elephant Gambit, let me add that to my list of openings here. Oh, okay, so they do take this way, and I will push just like our last opponent did, because I think that is the best move. And we'll see if they know about, ooh, I was going to say, we'll see if they know about Queen E2. They do not. They play the move D4. And obviously that's a blunder. Okay, you don't want to lose knights for pawns. So I will just take it. I'll just take it. I was hoping we were going to get to see the Wasp variation. But okay, I don't love that recapture by our opponent because they could have taken with the queen. And now their pawn structure is not very good. All right, looks like I can take the pawn, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. Yes, my queen is going to probably get attacked. Never mind. But I was going to say I have this move, bishop to b4, to pin the knight, and it actually saves my queen. So that's what I'm going to be probably doing. Let's go ahead and develop a piece. Probably doesn't matter. I'm going to start with this knight, and then maybe this one, saving that bishop in case I need it on b4, and I'll wait to see where I want to put this guy. Okay, b3. The problem with that move, if you're wondering, is it weakens the dark squares. So now knight c3 is even worse for white because this is even more powerful pin. Okay, and so I don't love that move by our opponents. I think I'll just develop the other knight, get both the knights out there. Ah, they wanted to play bishop c4, that's why they did it. Okay, so not a big deal. We just move our queen somewhere. Question is where? A lot of times in these openings where you bring the queen to d5, there's usually 3 options for where the queen can go to. Okay, it's usually either a5, h5, or maybe 4 options, d6 or d8. These are kind of the places where you just either bring it all the way home and you just wait for later. I personally prefer either a5 or h5 usually, so that's what I'm going to look at. This one is nice because it's on the king side. If for some crazy reason white decides to castle, we're going to be well positioned. I don't think they will. This one's not bad because we start to attack those dark squares, and we can follow up with bishop to b4. So that actually looks pretty good too. So I might just do that. But both of these look very nice. Yeah, let's go this way this time. Because they played b3 and weakened these dark squares, I'm going to do it. If the pawn was back on b2, I don't think I'd go here because they could very easily play c3, and I don't really have any follow-up. But in this case, c3, now your knight is stuck defending. It's very awkward for white. So queen a5 should be pretty good. They do play c3, but like I was saying, you can't move your knight now or you lose this pawn. Not a good situation. Okay. I think it's time to develop the bishops. Now, one of the reasons you wait to develop your bishops is because you have more information. And the knights, you kind of always know they're usually going to go here, right? Bishops, you kind of want to wait and see. So I can see now, I don't want to go here, here, here with my bishop, which means it's pretty straightforward. I have 2 choices. I'm going to choose this one, a little bit more aggressive. And then this guy I'm still waiting because I might want to go here if, let's say, white castles. I might want to go here just to control this nice diagonal. I'm kind of trying to get a little bit of information. Now, first thing that you should do after every move by your opponent is ask, why did they go there? Why did they go there? You know what? Probably because they're trying to do some shenanigans on my king. I don't want that to happen. So what am I going to do? I think I'm going to castle. Now, maybe in hindsight, I should have moved this bishop first because I really kind of would have liked to castle this way. But that's too late. So I'm going to go with what I do have available, which is castling this way. The reason I'm hesitant to do this is because the G file, okay? As bad as white's pawns are, they do have a G file. They could put a rook on if they want and try to attack my king. So I do need to be careful of that. B4. Okay. So let's just see what happens if I take and I jump in with the bishop. Is it worth sacrificing a piece? Pretty annoying, actually. It might be. The other alternative is I just swing the queen back over here like we talked about to h5. But I think I will. And here's why I'm going to do it. Because I'm castled, My king is safe. White is not. I'm ready to start bringing the rooks into the party. And by busting open the king and putting the pressure on these dark squares is really going to cause white some problems, I think. So Stockfish might not agree with me, but from a practical standpoint, I think this is a great setup for me. Okay. I had pre-moved, by the way, if you're wondering what just happened there. I pre-moved because I knew white was probably going to take me, so I just went ahead and pre-moved it, but that's essentially what happened. Okay, what should we do? Well, wouldn't it be nice to attack the king with a piece and develop at the same time? Oh, guess what? We can do that. Check. King is running out of squares, actually, guys. Has to go to G1, and we almost have checkmate. Almost. If the bishop takes our queen. So what I can do is play queen f5 and try to go this way. Sorry, this way for checkmate. Or I can bring a rook over to try to do something here. But I think, yeah, this looks very... there's bishop d3. There is bishop d3. Okay, so what I'll do instead is play queen h5. Same idea. I want to go here and checkmate. Trying to avoid the bishop d3 move, where it would attack my queen and also defend that square. So that's why I chose queen h5. But here is the threat. Honestly, white probably still has to play like bishop d3 or some queen or bishop move that control. They do play it. Okay, so they're on to they're at least seeing what I'm threatening. So if we can get rid of the bishop, that's another way that we could deliver the checkmate. Or if we could block this guy. So those are the things I'm going to think about. Let me start with rook e8. And oh yeah, we might even have a fancy move here in just a second. We might even have a really fancy move. Knight to e4. Okay, now I don't know if it works. Let's see if it works. Actually, it might still work. It might still work. So here's the deal. Here's the deal. The king is stuck. Okay, that's really straightforward. If we can deliver check, it's checkmate, basically. Now white could block. Who cares? We would take it. The issue is we can't go to any of those squares, or we just lose our queen, right? Now, I could sack my rook, but then the queen's going to take. And again, control the square. The same issue. But what I can do, maybe, and this is what I have to calculate, is something like knight to e4. And the point is that if the pawn takes me, you've now blocked your bishop, okay? And I can simply go here and checkmate. If the bishop takes me, then I'll probably sacrifice my rook, hoping for the same thing. The only issue that I am seeing here is that after bishop takes, rook takes, knight takes, check is not checkmate. You guys see that? It's not checkmate because the knight would swing over to g3. Okay? So maybe the easiest and the simplest thing to do is actually just get rid of the knight, right? The bishop is kind of off to the side anyway, so I will just take that. But I wanted to start with this just to see if it would lead to a quick checkmate. It doesn't look like it did. So we will take the pesky knight. And now, yeah, white has a tough decision. Because if they take with the queen, I was coming in here probably for checkmate. They take this way. I simply take the queen. All right, and what was that bishop defending? That's correct. It was defending this square, which it is no longer defending. So we jump in, and we now have checkmate next move. White can throw in the bishop just to delay the game one more move, but it's all over. Okay, and they do resign. Before we get a chance to do that, let's check the game review. We did have a mistake, so we will look at that in just a moment. Wins. Okay, 90. Let's see what the mistake was. I'm curious. Oh, wait, was there not a mistake? Hold on. Oh, that was White's mistake. Let me see. Okay, it was an inaccuracy. We had an inaccuracy. Oh, okay, it didn't really love knight takes before. Although Stockfish does list that as the third option. Okay, so it doesn't mind it too much. It just thought queen h5 was the better move. Okay, but yeah, realistically, this is still pretty good because white had a hard time defending. I think what they should have done is played something like knight d2, and then I was going to probably just swing the rook over and just keep attacking. The problem for white's king, by the way, is they don't have any safe place to go. You don't want to castle this way because it's open. You don't want to castle this way because it's open. You don't want to stay in the center because I'm starting to attack you. And that is why it was a very dangerous situation for white to be in. Okay. All right. Next game. Here we go. All right. Let's play e4. And I have quite a few openings on my list that start with e4. So let's see what we can do here. I would like to play... kind of feeling a Halloween Gambit if we get an opportunity. Halloween Gambit. Except Barry's not here. Uh-oh. Barry's aborting. There he is. All right, let's go knight f3. Yeah, do I want to do a Halloween Gambit or a fried liver attack? Oh, what do you guys think? Fried liver or Halloween Gambit? Let's try a fried liver attack. We'll go for the fried liver attack. So we start with the Italian game. And what we are hoping for is a 2 knights defense. Knight to f6. That's going to give us the option to go into potentially a fried liver attack. Now, the other move that black could play here would be bishop c5. All right, so they have kind of two main options here. Joku piano or the 2 knights defense. Joku piano doesn't allow us to play knight g5, right? Because the queen is actually currently guarding that square. But as soon as you play knight f6, the queen no longer guards the square. They do choose bishop c5. Okay, so unfortunately, we can't do that. Now, there are all kinds of interesting gambits that we could play here. I don't think I really have any on my list, so I'm just going to choose one. And I think we're going to go... oh, I actually have the Scotch Gambit on my list. Yeah, Scotch Gambit. So what we can do is play the move d4. Now, this is not the normal move order for the Scotch Gambit. Normally, you would play d4 right here. That's a Scotch game. They take you, and then you would go bishop c4. And you might get a similar position to this because you would have the same position, and if black plays bishop c5, here we are. So a different move order. I have a couple videos on the channel. This is a very tricky move for black to figure out how to handle. Okay, they do take with the pawn, which most everybody does. And there is, this is called the Haxo Gambit. Yeah, there's a video. You should check it out if you haven't. Haxo Gambit. There's two ways to play this: c3 and knight to g5, I think. And I am trying to remember the lines from either of them. They're both really good. They're both really tricky. I think I'll go with knight g5 this time. Yeah, I'll go with knight g5. Here's the deal. We've opened up our bishop, so it's now defended. So we can go here. And black has to be really careful already because notice the bishop, notice the knight, notice the queen. And there's a key detail. Ooh, d3. That is not a good move. There's a key detail. The bishop is undefended because a lot of times what ends up happening, like for example, let's say black would have played something like knight h6. I think what I was going to do is take it. He takes me. I take him. He takes me. And then bam, I can go queen h5 check. And there's a king and there's a bishop. Okay, and I'm actually getting my piece back. His king is exposed. Really interesting stuff. So that's kind of what I was thinking. Now, d3 is just not a good move because you don't deal with the threat. This doesn't really bother me. I think I'm going to just probably take here. Could also take with the bishop with check, but no, I think we want to go with the fork. Now, there is, actually, I say that, there is some interesting stuff. If he sacrifices and goes check, I do have g3. Yeah, I should be totally fine. Check, not a big deal. Okay, I don't think there's anything there. Just wanted to verify. Let's go ahead with the fork. Queen f6 is okay. So not a bad plan from black, I guess. They're basically saying, look, I'm going to save the fork by moving my queen and threatening checkmate, which, okay, not a bad idea. The problem, I think, for black here is that I'm just going to castle. And it's a very easy threat for me to deal with. And I still have my knight trapping the rook. So it doesn't quite solve all of black's problems, I think. Let me just verify, is that the best move here? Is there anything else that might make sense instead? I don't really think so, because I definitely have to stop checkmate, so there's no questions of anything else like that. Yeah, we'll just go ahead and castle. Gets the king out of the center, adds the defender there with the rook, and I'm good to go. Oh, I just noticed we're rated 899. 899. This will be the game that takes us over 900, assuming we don't lose. Knight to d4. What a move. So he wants to somehow come in here and then I'm not sure what. All right. So you want to at least consider like how big of a deal is the threat, because if I want right now I could just stop this. I could just stop this. I could just take this. He no longer has the support. He can't jump in. Now if I'm not worried about it, I would just take the rook and let him go there. Move my king and I'm happy. It does look a little bit tricky though. Like it almost looks like I might want to just take that pawn just to avoid this. Because again, his rook is trapped. It's not going anywhere. I don't have to rush take that. Yeah, I think I will. I think I will. I don't like this idea of knight to e2 coming in here. There's some like tactical patterns with the queen coming and the knight on g, and it's, yeah. Don't really want to mess with that. d5. Okay, so should I just take it? You got to start with the obvious moves, right? Should I just take it? I mean, why not? He's letting out his bishop, but what is he going to do? I don't really see a whole lot. I don't think you can get away with going there. It doesn't seem good enough. Yeah, I think we just take it. Now, I could also take with the pawn, trying to open up the e-file. But I kind of just like my pawns the way that they are. I think I will just take with the bishop. Oh, yeah, and by the way, taking with the pawn blocks my bishop from defending the knight. That probably would have been a big mistake. So, bishop to e6. Okay. What should we do? Well, what's the major threat behind this move? The fact that my knight is now under attack, right? I could simply just take the rook and leave this tension. I could take here and threaten the other rook. I could trade or maybe find a different move, right? Lots of options. Like bishop g5 is a crazy move that counterattacks. If we take here, I think I'm in trouble because he's going to play rook b8. And the problem is now I have all these pieces that are under attack. This is going to be under attack. This is going to be under attack. And even if I am able to get one rook, I'm going to lose my bishop. My knight is stuck in the corner. I'm probably going to lose my knight. I don't want to lose so many pieces for just a rook. That doesn't seem very good. I think what I'm going to do is just take this. And then once he takes, then I'll just take the rook and be happy. That's what I think I'm going to do. Or I just take the rook right now and let him take me here and open up the e-file. That also looks pretty good. But again, I like my nice pawns in the center. So I am going to go ahead and take. And then finally, we have to grab the rook because now we've lost the support from the bishop and it's time. Okay, the time has come to take the rook. So black's going to decide which way to take back. And then we take the rook. By the way, these are very complicated positions. So, you know, don't feel bad if you're not following everything just yet. Just do your best to kind of follow the train of thought as much as you can. You'll get better with time. But these are very complicated positions. So please don't feel bad if, you know, if you're having a rough time. And by the way, we'll check the game review. I could be missing some stuff too. There might be some crazy stockfish things that I'm not seeing as well, right? Okay, so they do take back. And like I said, now's the time. We will go ahead and grab the rook because I was going to lose my knight otherwise. And they do castle. All right. So let's just what I like to do when the dust kind of settles sometimes is just to step back and take stock of the position so I understand like what's going on. So first things first, queen, queen, rook, rook, knight, 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 bishop, bishop. Okay, so I am up a full rook at the moment, which makes sense because I just took it in the corner. Okay. However, my knight is probably trapped. All right, I don't think that knight is going to see the light of day. He's going to move his knight. He's going to take me. So material-wise, I have a small advantage. If we count the pawns, 3, 4, 5, 3, 4, 3, 4, 5, 7. 7 against 5, so I have 2 pawns and the exchange, rook for knight. That's pretty good. Let's talk about piece activity, though, for a second, because black actually has a big lead in the piece activity department, right? Look at my pieces. My pieces are not very good. Look at this. I haven't really moved any of them off the back rank, except this guy, which is stuck in the corner. Now, I do have some pawns in the center, which is nice, but I have to be careful, right? So I'm going to keep that in the back of my mind as I choose my next move. I have to be careful just because I'm ahead material. So king safety, his king looks pretty safe, actually. I don't think I can really attack that. My king looks relatively safe, but I do want to be careful because if this knight jumps up and then jumps over and then the queen comes in, he starts threatening checkmates and there's a knight and there's a bishop, maybe the rook comes over, like who knows what is going to happen, okay? So I am definitely going to be thinking about that. And actually, there's this move, queen h5. Very interesting move because it attacks his bishop. Also, maybe threatens to save my knight if I'm worried about that. And it's the other thing about queen h5 is it sort of brings a queen closer to the king side to kind of help support my king. Honestly, my gut is telling me I need these pieces into the game as quickly as possible. That's what my gut is telling me. So I think I want to play like knight c3. Maybe we could go to d5. Bishop e3 just to kind of counter what's going on here a little bit. Add us a defender, something like that. Yeah, so I'll go knight c3. It'll be interesting, actually. After the game, we'll check this. I'm curious what Stockfish would play in this position. I don't actually know what the best way is, so I'm gonna check Stockfish for sure after this one. Yeah, and I'm counting on the fact that he's gonna spend these next 2 moves taking my knight, which is gonna give me the time that I need to finish my development. All right, so I'm thinking bishop e3, or I could just go save the knight. Now maybe it's the time I attack here and then I save this guy, right? It might actually be worth it. It is a piece after all. Yeah, we'll do it. We'll do it. Actually, oh, I have a minute and a half. I have to move faster. Okay, we'll do it. But okay, he didn't actually see what I was doing, so I will take the bishop, which is nice. Because now I didn't actually lose the knight, I just traded the knight, which is great. Because I'm up a rook, but I also eliminated one of his nice attacking pieces. So that was a great little trick there that we had, okay? All right, so let's pick up the pace here a little bit. Let me go bishop e3, develop, and I would like to trade. Remember, when you're ahead, trading gets you closer to the end game. Also, when you're trying to defend your king, trading makes your life easier, okay? With that in mind, where's a good move for my queen? Queen d5. I'm going to offer a trade and really encourage black to trade queens because then I'm not going to worry about getting checkmated, okay? Queen d5. And, whoa. Okay, well, he does have a check, but that's it. I'm just going to go here. I'm fine. I'll take the knight. And I could also block, actually, too. Queen g5 is another move. Would I rather my king be tucked over there, or would I rather play queen g5? I think I'll just play queen g5 because, again, trading queens is going to be good for me. So let's see if we can do that. 55 seconds, and he resigns. He doesn't even try to flag me. That is very interesting from Barry, but good game. Okay, check the game review. I thought we were about to have to pick up the pace there, but no. Okay. Wow, 94. So apparently I made most of the right decisions, which is surprising because that was a very complicated position. So we will go back very quickly. I do want to go. What I was saying here, yeah. So like against, for example, knight h6, you can actually do this. You take, and you lose a piece in that exchange, but then you get your piece right back with this fork. And we end up with a relatively equal position. Okay. But it's kind of fun. Anyway, the game played d3. We captured. We castled. Okay, right here, the best move actually was, wow, queen h5. Yeah, so really good move to keep in mind, because look at this. You're hitting the bishop. You're also threatening this, and I don't know how black deals with that. I guess they have to save the bishop. If they play like g6, you just grab this guy, and you're in great position. If they defend it, you now take with a check. So it's even more dangerous after g6. You're just all over here. Wow. Okay, so I missed that one. I did miss queen h5. Captured, d5. We took here. Very good. We traded. Okay, yeah, this was the position where I wanted to see. And Stockfish actually says exactly what I did. Knight c3, and then the second choice would have been bishop to e3. And then the third choice would have been queen h5. So it always makes me feel good when my ideas were the same as Stockfish. But basically, to summarize, getting these pieces out quickly was what Stockfish thought was the best thing to do. Okay, so knight c3, and then queen h5, just like I did. Awesome. And then, of course, we take, and then it's relatively straightforward. Bishop e3. Yeah, very good. Cool. All right, good game to our opponent. Guys, I'm going to stop the video here. We crossed 900. My voice is kind of going out, so I don't think I can play another one. Thank you guys for being here. I'll see you next week. We're going to keep going, and yeah, stay sharp, play smart, and take care.